All right, Kyle, another Kyle on the show here. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Hey, Kyle, how's it going? Good to have you here.
Good. Number 23. So Michael Jordan, the episode number 23, it's a famous number.
My daughter would know all about that. My daughter's name is Jordan, and she is a basketball fan, so she has the posters all over her bedroom.
All right. Named after Michael Jordan?
No. My wife had the name picked out since the time she was a kid, so that's where she ended up.
That's funny. Well, she's sounds like she's taken hold of the name and living it, fully with the posters everywhere.
Yep.
Well, excited to have you on. We've traditionally, a wide variety of people on the show where we have technology experts. We have mostly rental companies, though, and people we bring on run these rental companies are 80-90% plus revenue from rental. And your story is a little bit different. We'll talk about you guys have been in rental for 18 years, but that's not your main business, and you're starting to make more an investment. So I'm excited for this episode because I think it's an interesting conversation to talk about why you can still do rental and not necessarily have to be 100% rental company. So excited to talk about that today, Kyle. And I'd love if you want to just sort of start with your background, how you got into Miller's Ace hardware to begin with, and even further back the journey with your business of how your company started with rental 18 years ago.
Yep. So I have been with Miller's Ace Hardware since I was actually in high school. I was in high school, had a buddy that worked here, and I started out doing inventory. And through doing that part-time, that led to eventually being hired on full-time. And at that point, we were at another location. This was 2002, I want to say. And through all that, ended up just working the sales floor like everybody else. In 2006, we got a new building, moved into the location we're currently in at this point, and Ace was making a push for a rental. So we brought on all this smaller handheld equipment. The largest thing was like aerators and whatnot. One day we got crazy, got a Dingo, which was pretty much Ace's top of the line. They said, hardwood floor sanders and power washers, drills, that's where you make your money. Don't go with anything bigger. And so for, I don't know, probably the last 16 years, maybe not 16, it's probably been 14 years. That's pretty much where we stuck. And stayed with the lighter equipment, the less expensive stuff, as their opinion was less investment, less risk. But through that process, I think, have had a stumbling block for a lot of customers that called and wanted a skid steer or wanted a towable lift. They wanted something bigger, and, we didn't have that inventory. So here recently in the last 4 years, started making a bigger investment. We started adding some stump grinders, larger ones, track units, added a skid steer, added the first towable lift, and the towable lifts and the stump grinders have done very well. Those are probably some of our best items. And it was a couple of the scariest things because some other guys in town got out of stump grinders and we couldn't figure out why. So we said, well, let's try it because I think it'll work. And we made that work. So now we've went from, one track stump grinder where I have 3 on rent, and on a nice day, you're lucky to find one here. The towable lifts, same thing. We found that Ace was wrong. Our advice that we were given, we feel was wrong. And then now we may be, 18 years into rental, and it feels like we're starting over, trying to make second contact with somebody, which is much harder to pick up that conversation when somebody's already called you once. And now we don't have that to try to get that return call back. So that's where we're at. And, we've went from one towable lift, and now I have 4 of those, and I have 1 drivable. And they do very well. The drivable, not so well, but the tow behind lifts, I could probably add 2 or 3 more.
Yeah. So in many ways, you guys are the 18-year-old startup, right? Like you've been doing this for 18 years, but you're now hitting it to another level. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so about 4 or 5 years ago, me and the owner basically we're at our wits' end with the rental. It was kind of like, it's do or die. This is like, the $1,000 to $3,000 a month in revenue we're getting off of the power washers and sanders. This just doesn't make sense. The expense that we've got to maintain this equipment, the space it takes up on the sales floor, I could put something else there and sell it. It doesn't make sense. So let's make a run at this, take it serious again. Because, for probably 10 years there, we honestly didn't put effort into it. It was kind of like it was there, and we were kind of, hands off. It was like, it does a little bit. But It's do or die now. At this point, obviously, we've sunk a ton of money into inventory and advertising now also. So, hopefully we can revive it and turn it into another source of income. But we also do fireplaces. We do pellet stoves. We do a fair amount in firearms. And then, of course, Ace Hardware. We've got everything from grills to nuts and bolts and plumbing and, lawn and garden supplies. So you name it, we're pretty diversified on that side. So it's kind of the piece of the pie that we're hoping that as things change, we can grow this as some of the other sides of the business are slowing down, if you will.
So what I'm interested, you guys have as you mentioned, diversified business. You're doing a lot of other different things. Rental is complicated and takes a lot of effort. What's attracting you guys to rental to even make that investment to go deeper in the first place?
We've got a lot of, homeowners, DIYers in the store all the time. They're already purchasing fertilizer or grass seed, so they're looking for an aerator. They're looking for a thatcher. They're looking for a seeder. We've got guys that are, out power washing, they want to clean their gutters. So the towable lifts are a great fit, and we get a fair amount of contractors too, but we are more on the DIY side just from being a hardware store. So it's a good fit. We also are big in outdoor power equipment. We're a steel handheld power equipment dealer. I've got 0 turns out here on the lot. Hoping still to sell through the rest of those this year if the weather holds up. So we've already got a shop. I've got guys working at a parts counter. So it's kind of like a good fit that my guys that are handling the parts lookup, my guys in the shop that are already repairing equipment. It's like, well, why not? We can rent this equipment. I've got a guy that can repair it in the shop. I've got, guys at the parts counter that I can, have rate rental contracts. So kind of, just another piece of the puzzle to hopefully, get some of those positions that were just not really a careers type position that we're always having turnover, to try to get them into a higher compensation position that I can stop the turnover and get some better people in positions throughout the building, that we can give them a little more responsibility, hopefully make a little bit more money, and then we can afford to pay them a little more.
Interesting. So you guys are viewing rental as a way to, improve profitability, which ultimately will allow you to get better employees. Is that, am I hearing you right?
That's my mindset in going into it. Because basically our rental contracts are handled, through our guys at the customer service counter. So they're handling parts lookup. They're handling, service orders, for customer equipment coming in. They're also handling sales on, outdoor power equipment. So it's kind of right down that alley anyway. They're handling some of the higher dollar value stuff. So, rental fits right in there. And if I can add some more revenue off that side of the business, that person that we hire in that position takes months to train because there's so many different sides of everything, between the hearth side to the outdoor power equipment to the rental side, and just learning the software on how to use our computer system, use the rental software, much less once I take them away from the counter and say, okay, now I want to teach you how you run this stump grinder. I want to teach you how you run this man lift. And so you can teach a customer how to use it. That takes so much time and training. The turnover for me is a huge problem. That is my number one pain. That's a huge problem. So if we can figure out a way to retain these people, it definitely will help.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've found a lot of rental companies, finding great people and retaining them has been a challenge. It's been that way for a few years. Have you found that the employees who get to work in the rental business have been more excited? Is that like a new challenge for people? Has that been something as a way to sort of help retain people that they get to work across the rental business?
Sometimes, I encourage my guys that are in the rental department to go through, hey, when you're doing something at home, you need to use it. Our policy has always been, if you're using it at your house, take the equipment home for free as long as it's not it's not reserved or it's not, out. Take it home, use it on your project. So when you come back to work the next day, you understand that equipment better than you ever did before. And when, Joe Smith walks in off the street and says, hey, I need to lay a piece of drain tile through my backyard, he can go, I did that. I use that trencher, man. It's so easy. It's going to make your life great. So yeah, a lot of them get some more advanced knowledge on that side of the business for sure. and, gets them out from behind the counter. They get to go outside and, round up a piece of equipment, talk to a customer, So I feel like it is a break from the phone calls constantly and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it mixes the day up for sure. I'm curious for you guys, like, rental has been sort of a sideshow historically. You're making more of an investment in the last few years. What have been some of the challenges for you guys as you've taken the rental industry or your rental business more seriously? Like, what are some of the things you've been learning, some of the challenges you guys have had to overcome in the last few years?
That's a good one. The biggest thing I think is getting back out in front of that same customer that may have shopped us before, and we didn't have what they wanted, or maybe they had a bad experience. Even we've went obviously since we've switched our software over, and you've been great with helping us with that. Now we have a web presence, so we're seeing 10, 15, maybe 20% some days of contract coming in off our website. So that also helps obviously on the staffing side. But that's the biggest thing, is trying to get out in front of the customer again. Because I know personally, when I shop somewhere and they didn't have what I want, I'm probably less likely to try there again. Mm-hmm. So trying to, invest in advertising, pushing social media. I don't know how much that, me personally posting on social media helps, but, we'll try anything once, maybe twice.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious on the e-commerce side, you said 10 to 20%. We see across our platform around 20% of all orders are, and that's over hundreds of thousands of transactions that are done online. That's sort of where we would see the right mix. Of that 20%, are you seeing those are first-time renters with ACE? Are they repeat customers? Are they first-time renters who've never rented anything in their life before? I'm curious, how does that online component differ from the people who come in store?
That's a good question. I wish I could say for sure. Most of them, I would say, are new customers. But we do have some that are repeat, that they've logged back in and they've, came back and shopped with us again. I've had some customers that always call in and say, hey, my husband's going to come pick this up. Can you hold it for me? And they're just like, hey, not that I don't enjoy talking to you, but you can log in on the website and you can do this yourself. And, a lot of people actually have figured that out now. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's that guy, he's rented from us. He rents that aerator, once every 2 weeks. He has a contract going out and doing it. So it's neat to see that, so the phone call, I didn't have to answer that, there was 3 more already in the queue waiting. So one more customer that got help during that time period.
Yeah, interesting. So you're seeing a lot of first-time renters use the e-commerce platform, but once you tell current customers about it, they've started to gravitate towards it as well. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the society today, is the Amazon, click the button. I want it at my house, tomorrow, because I don't want to take the car and drive, 3 minutes down the street to Walmart or wherever and actually have to shop for myself. So it's the same problem we see, even in the hardware store. We've got almost everybody has some sort of online, buy online, pick up in store, BOPUS, a lot of people call it. So it's about the same thing. At the end of the day, they can go on the website, they can rent the piece of equipment and click delivery. And all I do is send my delivery driver out and say, hey, go drop this off over here. And, essentially we've not had any interaction other than the driver dropping it off and, saying, hey, here it is. This is how you use it. Make sure you hose it off and top it off with fuel before we come back. So.
Yeah, I like that. BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store. I haven't heard that. So, sounds like the online, all things being equal, you'd rather have an online order than in person. It just saves you guys time, especially when you go back to what you were talking about earlier, labor shortages, finding great people, right? It's not, how much time is an online order saving you from an in-person walk-in?
I'd say from a new customer, you probably would spend 5 to 10 minutes with somebody, between determining what they need, what they want, and, getting them added into the system, getting the paperwork, signed, everything. So yeah, it definitely cuts down on time. So, 5-10 minutes, I would say you probably gain by somebody essentially doing the job for you,
Yeah. And they're sometimes happier. They don't want to call either. And they're happy they can shop at their own leisure. It feels like the customer has more control, which ultimately makes happier customers as well, right? There's a customer benefit to this too.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people are intimidated, to talk to someone. They think that when they call and talk to somebody, say in the rental department, that I feel like a moron, but hey, this is what I want to do. Do you have something to do this job?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they go online, they can kind of look around at their own leisure. They don't have to hold somebody up on the phone and ask questions that they might feel are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some comfort, I think, in that. And also, people can we get the phone call, hey, do you got aerators? Yep. How much is it a day? And, whatever the price is, $60 a day, whatever. Well, how about a cedar? You got one of those too? And, well, I'm thinking about doing this in the fall. Do you have one of these? And it's like, hey, go on our website. You can check everything there. And when you're ready, just click the button and you come in and pick it up. Or if you want to, you can call us back and we'll punch it in. But, obviously it's wasting time for everyone on the phone and they're writing something down that they're probably not going to remember anyway. So,
yeah, I mean, that was our thesis starting Quipli 4 years ago, was online writing. And I think every year, ARA put numbers out, it's growing like 5% or so. Now it's like 25% of transactions are online or something like that. And I think, I don't know if you saw this, but United Rentals came out and said 70% of their revenue in Q1 was from their digital channels, which is crazy, right? That was not the case 5 years ago. I think the interesting thing we're seeing is like the online renting continues to be like the wedge into rental companies. A lot of first-time renters who are not as confident, they want to get a feel. They're not ready to walk into your store, but they're ready to engage online. Like you get a lot of first-time renters. And then, like you said, you get a lot of people who who don't really even know about the website because they've been calling you for 5 years. And now that you've sort of showed them how to do it online, you're getting those people switched over and then they'll go back, right? So I think those are sort of the two buckets of people we see on the online side, which is where you see it. And the other thing we're seeing is, and Sunbelt and United have sort of, invested their own money into this. So we're sort of watching what they're doing. But the customer portal piece is also a newer thing. And I think that's almost like the next wave of online renting, where not only can you just create the order online and book everything for pickup and delivery, but you can also manage your rentals. You can go in and request extensions and call offs directly in your account. You can click one button like Amazon to reorder. You can request service and maintenance calls if things are broken on site and you need to, with one click, do that. See all of your invoices and pay bills, right? You've got 3 open contracts. You want to pay one check to pay all that, or, one credit card payment or ACH, et cetera. So Sunbelt in particular and United have had a ton of success in the customer portal. And I think that's sort of where the next wave here is. First, with getting online renting in place. The next wave is, some of those United calls total control, where you can take full command of your rental operation digitally, right? I think that's sort of the next wave, I think, of where this all seems to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It's like, I go back to the Amazon thing.
Yeah.
And like calling somewhere anymore. You can't call someone and usually, in my shoes, get somebody on the phone. Typically there's always some sort of an auto attendant that's going to pick up and say, thank you for calling Miller Hardware. Press 1 for service, press 2 for sales, whatever. And during COVID, we were so busy that we had to enable that on our system. We used to answer every call personally, and cashiers were answering the phone and they were directing it. Well, they were so busy, we had 50 people standing in line running full registers all day long. We couldn't keep up. And I was like, me and the owner talked about it and we agreed that I think it's time that we're going to have to do this. So now we're one of those statistics that, you get a computer that answers the phone. So, most people don't want to talk to a computer. I know I don't. When I call the pharmacy and want to know why my prescription's not ready, 3.5 minutes into the call, I'm still dialing 0, trying to get somebody on the phone because the computer won't answer my question. Having the ability to go online and, scroll through and go, okay, there it is. Yeah, I want to do this. I want to see this order. What's going on? And be able to click the button. I think is huge. Amazon's done that. I can go online and if something's wrong with something I bought 6 months ago, I can click the button and say, hey, this thing's broke, and they send me another one.
Yeah. I mean, I use Amazon every week. My wife does it probably every day for 10 years. I don't think I've ever called Amazon. Have you ever called Amazon or even tried to? Because you don't, because the digital platform is so robust. They probably also, you can't call them. They'll figure out a way to like route you 100 different ways, but they've figured out a way to build. I mean, I was looking at my account just to see all the buttons. Anything you want to do in the world, you can do in your sort of customer portal there.
Yep. Yeah, it's the truth. My daughter's got a little tablet that she got for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it broke. It was an Amazon Kids, whatever, kid-proof tablet. Comes with a 2-year worry-free warranty.
Yeah.
That there, I just went online, had to chat with somebody on my phone, and in 5 minutes, she said, I'll send you a new one. And the next day, it's sitting on my front porch. So, the idea is in my head. When I get a couple minutes of downtime, I really just want to go out and I want to shoot a commercial of how easy it is for, you to rent this from us, hey, honey, can you do this for me? And, oh, no, I don't have this piece of equipment. And then I'm going to have the wife go onto the cell phone and order a piece of equipment and show our truck driving away from the driveway, just.
Yeah. I mean, that's how easy it is, right? It's and that's what people are used to. And the phone calls, I had to call the IRS a few weeks ago before. I mean, that was an hour and a half on robocalls and waiting. And then the guy hung up, and like, that's just not how people want to interact anymore. And I think being able to do things online, obviously the government's going to be the last group to do this, but the rental industry has been lagging, right? And that's sort of now, I think it's sort of established. Like 4 years ago, people were very not sure about online renting. Should I show my price online? Like, what about verifying the person? Like, those things have all been solved. I think online renting's here to stay. You've seen that. And you obviously, we want to make a commercial about how easy it is, right? The next phase, though, is I think more enhancements to managing your account after the rental. I'm curious, do you guys get phone calls, stuff like that? If someone calls you like, hey, I need to extend my rental, or hey, this is broken, can you swap this out? I mean, how often are those things starting to happen?
Typically, all that's still coming over the phone.
Yeah.
I don't think we've gotten really anybody on that side of it yet.
Yeah.
We'll get somebody that calls and, hey, the track came off the skid steer. Can you send somebody out? Extending typically is still done over the phone for us. So we're kind of like a bedroom community. We're an hour and a half outside of DC. So, people are, commuting. There's no one there's almost zero people that live in our community that work in our community. Everybody drives, east to DC. So it's that kind of mentality, that, I just need it. I need it now. I got to get this done. And it's a different, demographic. A lot of the people that are working down that way aren't DIYers by trade. It's, right. I saw this on Pinterest and now I want to do it. I want to power wash my sidewalk. This looks cool, so there's a lot of learning curve there for most of these people. Yeah,
for sure. So you mentioned earlier that you guys are sort of going back into growth mode and trying to, you're making investments into marketing, making investments into equipment. We talked earlier about investments into, peer executive groups. If we had Dan Crowley on, what have you guys been learning around on the growth side of things in particular? You mentioned like it's been hard to get back in front of customers the second time, because if you didn't fulfill their need the first time, it's hard to earn that trust the second time. How have you guys been able to overcome that? How are things going on the growth side? What have you learned? What's working? What's not working? I know you're still pretty early in this new phase here, but I'm curious, lessons learned so far on, just driving demand for your rental business.
Yeah, it's hard to say. We've put some money in. We've always worked with iHeartMedia, and we've done two or 3 years of digital ad campaigns with them that are like a 3-month stretch. And, we've seen some growth in that. But honestly, ever since COVID, and I hate to keep using COVID as the excuse, but things went so wild and crazy for us during COVID. Our business all quadrupled overnight, and It stayed that way, for about 2 straight years. And then we've been constantly sliding for the last 2, I guess now. And, we're not back to where we were pre, but, that drop off there and then trying to grow rental at the same time. And with the economy that we're having right now, I don't know that I could say what's working, what's not working. I feel like what we're doing is working with, the combination of the SEO and the paid ads, but it's just so hard to say. I just don't know how to answer at this point. But when I figure out the secret sauce, I'll let you know.
Well, maybe don't, because then everyone will figure it out, right? Yeah, no, that's the hard part about marketing, right? It's hard to see exactly what's working and what's not. And a lot of it, you do a lot of things and something's working, something's not.
And then so much weather driven too, in my opinion, in the rental industry, at least at what we're doing. Most all of our rentals are 4 hours to a day. We don't get a lot of long term. And when I say long term, I mean week. On the very occasional, we'll see a month rental. But the week is typically the longest rental period that we see. So, I imagine the guys that are renting for 3 months, 6 months, they're not seeing the weather affect their bottom dollar like we are, because, April, we had a great month this year. Then May was 50% of April. But the reason May was down, in my opinion, is because it went cold. and it rained. Like 50% of the month, it was 50 degrees and raining. So this month, here we're 11 days in and we're about to top all what May did this year. So, but it's also been sunny and warm. So trying to juggle economy, weather, everything going on and try to wrap it around in my head at this point, I don't know how I could say what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, it's hard. I think that's part you got to take the long view and sort of let the noise cancel out. And I think also for your audience, right, the people commute to DC, the do-it-yourself, Pinterest people, they're going to be more sensitive to the weather and things like that, right? If you're doing a 6-month rental on a job site, that's different than someone who's trying to power wash their sidewalk, as you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
One of the questions someone just asked was on what rental items you're seeing the best ROI on. You mentioned earlier the stump grinders, towable lifts. You've seen success, which is different than maybe what Ace corporate had suggested, right? So a lot of this you're probably learning as you go. But like in the last few months, what items have particularly done really well for you guys? Maybe the other question, what items haven't done so well?
So I'll start with what haven't done well. Typically spring we are gangbusters doing aerators. I've got a couple of Clausen aerators. I've got a couple of Stingers. I've got a Ryan's. I got 5 or 6 aerators in rental. And I think the weather just kind of stubbed our toe this year because it never really took off. And usually they're gangbusters. We're constantly turning them, cleaning them, tightening chains, lubing them up, and getting them ready for the next guy. But the lifts, like I said before, the towable lifts, they have done very well. Honestly, we were told to expect 14 to 24 months to be your break-even point. And I was kind of skeptical at that point. We're doing such low period in rental that I'm buying the first machine that's, $25 plus $30,000. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. Like, man, I don't know if I'm making a huge mistake here.
Right.
But thankfully, that first one rented so well that we were like, okay, let's add another one. And then that's kind of during COVID, and that was going so well that we're like, well, this one might be ready to turn before this one's going to be available to buy a replacement because of COVID. They're saying 2 to 3 years on replacement right now. So we will order 2 more. Well, we all know how that ship went. The market recovered very quick on equipment, and they called and said, hey, 6 months later, these 2 are available. Do you still want these? And we're like, yeah, sure, send them anyway. So the towable lifts have done great. The stump grinders have done great. Trying to think what else. Mini excavators, they have done triple what our skid steers have done. I have not found the sweet spot with a skid steer yet. I have one John Deere unit that's on wheels, and I've got a Bobcat unit on tracks, and neither one of those units are utilized like they should be. The mini excavators, on the other hand, they go out for a week all the time. So, we just added a second one this year. Actually bought it while we were at ARA, and so far so good. So I'd say mini excavators, the towable lifts and stump grinders have probably been our 3 biggest things. Possibly the brush chipper. We've got a Bandit chipper that we added. It's done pretty well. Added a straw blower this year that we picked up at ARA. Had tons of people wanting to rent it, and it has not left my parking lot since the day it was dropped off by the truck driver. So
that's interesting. Yeah, you've had some home run purchases, some haven't worked out. I mean, can you attribute, and how do you know, I guess in hindsight, if you look back at like the purchases you made that worked out versus ones that didn't, what's the common thread here? Is it still just sort of random in your mind right now?
And I really wish I knew because, thankfully, like we were talking, everybody's starting to post rates online. So I start shopping rates, and I don't want to be the cheapest guy in town because I don't want to be the guy that's driving rates down, for one. Right. 2, a lot of our equipment is newer and nicer than, what somebody might be renting across town. So we try not to be the cheapest guy in town. So I try to make sure we're competitive on rates. So I don't know what honestly it is, but mini excavators, something about it, they've done well for us since the day we brought one in. Like I said, the skid steer, on the other hand, I can't explain it because we're cheaper. I actually went in, I deliberately lowered the rates, I don't know, $10 or $15 less than most other people in town, just to see if I could get them to roll. And they're still not really moving. We'll occasionally get the rental, but it's like, honestly, the machine is sitting here holding my parking lot down. I think actually the warranty just ran out on my John Deere that I got sitting out here. and it's probably got 100 hours on it, and it's been here for 2 years, 3 years now. I have to look and see, but I don't understand it, how a mini excavator works, skid steers. Most guys I see on their lot, they got 2 or 3 mini X's, and then they got, half a dozen skid steers. And me, I would have it the other way. I have half a dozen mini X's here and maybe a skid steer or 2 at tops, because it just, at this point, it doesn't work. I don't know what the reason behind it is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, partly, like you're 18 years old, but really in the last few years taking it seriously. Part of it is probably just letting time play out and seeing what happens over a period of time, right? But skid steer sounds like it's been there a few years. It hasn't moved, and the pricing, you're priced appropriately or even lower. Who are your main competitors in town? Are you compete with any national players, or most of some of the like independent local players?
So we've got, several independent local guys, but we've also got, Sunbelt, United. We don't have equipment share here yet. Their closest one, I think, is about 2 hours away. And then we've got, several rental companies here in town that one of them's got several branches. We've got another couple of guys that are just small time guys and, just like us. But they've been in rental longer than we have and more competitive with more equipment, more inventory. So I kind of attribute some of it to that these guys, you want a skid steer, they just always know that they go up, to Winchester and pick one up. That, the guys in Steve City, all they've got is power washers,
So in your mind, what differentiates you from your competitors? Is it like the one-stop shop where the average do-it-yourself can sort of walk in and it's just convenient, et cetera? Like, I guess in your mind, what makes you different than some of your competitors in town?
Well, I like to think that customer service would be, spoke in that wheel. But the one-stop shop, being able to, say, hey, I need to aerate my yard this weekend. I'm going to stop over here, pick up the aerator. I'm going to grab the fertilizer and some seed, or, whatever the project may be. Typically we've got, something that correlates with the rental item. We've got a lot of people here that are just local in our small subsidiary here of Winchester. We're in Steve City, just south of Winchester. So, we've got a whole community here right around us. We've got houses, literally, I could throw a stone in each direction and be in a neighborhood. So we're right here. So somebody that's looking to purchase, something to do around the house, there's a good chance that we may have a piece of equipment to complement what they're doing. Yeah,
so but probably can be customer service, but convenience, right? You're just right around the corner, and that's Ace Hardware locations are typically in the neighborhood, right? They're not the big box store. Got to drive across town. They're convenient. That's sort of what you're offering is convenient, especially for your average consumer who just needs something quick and easy. And if you're not doing monthly rentals, right? You're doing same day rentals, a lot hourly rentals. Maybe that's it. It's just the convenience side, right?
Yeah. And frankly, maybe I got the wrong opinion, but I really, at this point, I don't want the month-long rentals. I don't have a truck outfitted for doing, general service on job sites. So if I got to go out and change oil on something, I'm, putting some buckets in the back of a pickup truck and, I keep tools in my truck so I can, run service calls out of my own truck. But I really don't want to go to a customer's job site and have to do maintenance on equipment. I rather PMs in the shop.
Right. Yeah. It's different than other rental companies. So your niche is really like the, same day rentals, convenience, quick, easy, high frequency, not the 6-month rentals. That's not your game, right? That's not what you're trying to do.
At this point. Now, maybe I'm going to find out that that's my problem.
Well, yeah. You're part of the peer executive group now, as we talked about. They'll give you some coaching, I'm sure, and they'll tell you what they think. But obviously, you've gotten thoughts from Ace Hardware that haven't always panned out either.
Yep.
I mean, I know you're early in the peer executive group so far, but how's that been going? I know that's a topic we like to talk about with people, is the importance of community and learning from others. Why'd you guys decide to join that, and what have you learned so far?
Well, I mean, the main reason trying to join it is to gain knowledge, obviously to grow the business, figure out, if we see the big red flag of what the problem is, or find out, some secret sauce that, hey, we can make this thing really take off. But just the meeting we had last night was really just about starting to get our numbers in, do some benchmarking. So here this morning, before we got started here, I was putting in some revenue numbers into their spreadsheet to look at their, what do they call it, the month over month. I forget what the spreadsheet is he calls it, but basically just looking at, your percentage growth from month to month, year to year. Now, I know a lot of guys do contracts on pen and paper. Obviously, we're not in that boat. So I've got a better idea of how we're doing month to month, year over year already than some of the other guys that are writing it down, and then they've got to go type it into Excel and, figure it out. I know what we're doing, and that's why we're having the conversation, because I know that it's not where it needs to be, if that makes sense. So hopefully, as we continue into this, in our next meeting, find out a little more and see what other people have to offer in our group.
Yeah, well, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And there's a lot of standards, and we've talked to a lot of groups. There's like you've got feel, like you look at your yard and you see 10 skid steers sitting there. Well, you probably something's going on, right? But then there's the other part of it is the analytical side and looking at numbers, looking at dollar utilization numbers, and you can compare that to industry benchmarks. And there's a lot out there. ARA has a lot of benchmarks. Peer Executive Group, which you're going to get some benchmarks from. I think pretty quickly we see that people sort of find, we're really good on this. Let's invest more in the programs that are working. These, categories or products aren't working as well. Right? What's wrong with that? Is it pricing? Is it marketing, et cetera? So I think the good news is there is a plan, and a lot of it's just looking at the numbers. How do you compare against an average rental company who's performing well? And, it's benchmarked, right? And I think if you're for the rental companies who listen to this, who are just getting started or newer to this, right? You don't need to figure it out on your own. A lot of it is just working with the industry. And I've always found the industry has been very welcoming and helpful. They want to help people, and they want to sort of, just provide guidance, right? Because everyone's competing with the nationals, and they're consolidating and taking over and buying everyone. But I think for the independents, right? I think a lot of it is just community based and sort of sharing best practices, things like that.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's a lot of that, finding your niche. We were at the ARA show riding the bus over from the hotel to the convention center one morning. I was talking to another gentleman that they had a bigger store somewhere down south, several yards of their own. And then he told me that they actually just got into porta-johns. And I was like, oh man, I don't think that I would have thought to get into that, just naturally. It doesn't sound attractive to get into it, but he's like, oh man, it's great. And he's laying it out for me. I was like, it's just something I would have never thought of in my head, and, hopefully that, we're kind of in that same tight niche here with the homeowners, and just the matter of, educating the community that we have, what we have here in stock. And then I think a lot of it, comes back to the help. And sometimes, like I was sharing with you earlier, that it's hard keeping people, and then you get new people, getting them trained. And I don't want them to pick up the phone and the customer get the first opinion, wow, this guy doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they go on the website, we look the same every time.
Right.
I don't get the chance to insert, somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah, that may only be their second day on the job, but unfortunately, there's only one way, in my opinion, that you learn, and you have to do the job to learn it. So, at some point, you're going to have conversations with people that may not have been the most informative, but I don't want that also to be the first customer that called. The first time they called and went, man, what are they doing over there? They go on the website, at least they see a nice, pretty website. There's the pricing. They can look at what they want, and, click, 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 it's done. So.
Right. And the website's never going to quit or ask for a, pay raise, right? It's consistent, shows up to work every time, every day. It just works. It's integrated to the back-end system, right? So the whole thing flows. I think ARA put out numbers, 80% of rentals involve 80% of rental transactions involve going to the rental company's website. So 4 out of 5 times they're looking at your website. They may not be transacting online, which is, 20-25% of the time, but they are going to your website. And if it's not modern looking, doesn't look modern, isn't fast, SEO optimized, you're already behind the 8 ball. And if you don't have good reviews on your website, or at least on your Google My Business page, you're behind the 8 ball. You don't have pricing, you're behind the 8 ball, right? And that is 2024, and maybe you sort of added the robocalls, things like that. Maybe really it is just pushing the website, right? Because if with labor shortages, et cetera, you said the rental transactions online are save you 5 or 10 minutes. It's consistent. You're not going to have employees not know the answer, et cetera. Maybe that is the answer, is pushing more people online.
Yeah. And then even, coming down to the accessories, they go online, they want to rent the mini skid, they want to rent a dingo. Well, right there, hey, do you need a trailer to haul this?
Yeah.
You just click the little box and you're good to go when you get here. Whereas I don't know how many times I've had somebody come in the store and they rent a stump grinder, and we don't have the little trailers that Toro makes for the stump grinder. We just bought a couple regular utility trailers, and hey, if you need a trailer, we'll rent it to you. This is what it's going to cost. And they come around back and, the guy across town's got them on the trailer. It's like, well, obviously the employee didn't do his job and say, hey, by the way, do you have a way to haul this? Whereas if they're on the website, they're being asked if you want to rent a trailer. So kind of cueing you in that we do things a little different than maybe what you're used to across town, whatever. Not that it's a huge deal, but obviously when I put you a price, the stump grinders say $300 a day, and they're figuring that they always pick it up and it's got a trailer, and they come here, doesn't have a trailer. It adds a little, irritation to somebody. And obviously with new employees or somebody that's in a rush, you got 3 phone calls in the queue, there's 2 people standing in front of them, and, hey, this guy just needs to get the stump grinder and get out of here. They pull around back and it's like, oh man, you got to go back inside. We got to sign you up for a trailer. It's like, everybody's busy. Everybody's got stuff going on. And the more we can do to try to keep them on the road and keep everybody helpful. So that's the way I look at the website. The website just stays the same.
Yeah. Just to see.
There, it looks professional. It sounds professional. It doesn't have, comments that didn't make sense. Like I've got some awkward personalities from time to time, so.
Keeps things between the guardrails, and it also builds trust, right? Because the pricing is the same for everyone. Although you can offer negotiated rates for customers, and they can log in and negotiate. But for the most part, they don't feel like they're getting ripped off. It's transparent. It's important. We actually had another question from the audience related to online renting: is what information or documents do you require for new renters, and do you take security deposits?
So we actually don't do security deposits. And the reason we do that is when we switched over to your platform, I only take credit cards on rentals. So that pretty much alleviated my feel for the need to take a security deposit. Most of the time we took a deposit in the past anyway, it was, $50 for a cleaning fee on a drain snake or a carpet, shampooer. Or it was a $50 fuel fee on a skid steer. Because Lord knows the price of diesel, when somebody came back and didn't have money, that was a problem. Well, today with the credit card being stored, it's real nice that I can just go, hey, this guy's late, bill him for another day. Hey, he brought it back. It's filthy dirty and it's out of fuel. Well, there you go, $150 right there between fuel and cleaning. Just click the button and charge them. So I don't feel the need to charge a security deposit. And kind of the same page there, we got rid of the damage waiver because I felt like that was kind of just a fee. That every time it was a pain point, it was an argument. Well, I didn't damage it, so I should get that 10% back. It's like, well, that's not how this works. But, after all these years of doing it, it wasn't all the time, but there was at least a handful of customers every year that I'd be into a knockdown, drag out argument over that 10% fee that they didn't damage it, so I wanted it back. So when we switched that too, we got rid of the damage waiver. So, we require the credit card up front, and then we also require the driver's license. And hope that the driver's license is enough to track it down if it becomes an issue. We've had 2 or 3 issues where the credit card, is good enough to run $300 to it when they pick it up, but the next day when they didn't bring it back, when you go to hit it, insufficient funds. It's like, okay, yep, well, we did everything we could, right. Don't know how else to prevent it. We also disabled prepaid cards. And, I've got mixed feelings on the disabling the prepaid cards because I know a lot of people prefer to deal in cash, and I'm one of the guys that's like, I don't want to be in a cashless society. But on the same page, being a rental operator, I don't want to be the guy left holding the buck at the end of the day when somebody rented a piece of equipment for a day, and stereotypically what happened is they would drive up out back and they would throw it off in the parking lot and drive away. And who's going to pay it at the end of the day? Because the guy that couldn't come in and talk to me and tell me that, hey man, I'm having some hard times, can I pay you next week? The conversations that were had, the money's gone, and that's just one more person on the DNR list, Yeah,
and I think on the credit card piece, this is in a Facebook group this week. People are asking about, man, I wish our credit card processor could disable prepaid cards. And I know Stripe, we use Stripe, and we work through some stuff with them, but I think for the most part, there's some cool features they have, including you can disable prepaid cards. You can also be alerted if it's a prepaid card. So, you can decide to take that rental or not. The other thing is being able to capture the credit card on the website and then store that. So other payment processors don't always do that. So someone rents online, 6 months later, you find out they damaged it, right? You can charge them 6 months later and store it indefinitely on Stripe servers. They're PCI compliant. So like those sort of small features, they don't seem like a big deal, but like when you're at the end of the holding the bag because someone damaged something and you can't charge their credit card, or you got screwed because there's a prepaid card, et cetera. Those things matter, right? That hits your bottom line.
Absolutely. And we're big on the credit card compliance, coming from the hardware side.
Yeah.
And I say that, but we get hit every year. Somebody doesn't listen. Our policy is, you can take a credit card over the phone for up to $100 as a deposit on anything that we're going to order for a customer, and that's it. We don't hand key credit cards outside of that. If over that amount, you need to come into the store and we need to swipe it. I've got no way to do a payment processor online for the rest of the building. So when it comes to the rental, I steer everyone either to the consumer website, or what I try to get all of my guys to do is to get a name and a phone number and an email and send a quote. So at least we've captured them. We've got them in the system. They've got a link text to them. They've got a link in their email. At least now all they got to do is click the button and then put their information in, and they're up and running. I try not just to send them right to our website because obviously there's less of a tie there. I feel like that if I've got a hook in their phone that they can just click this little button and, hey, now I can just complete this rental. I don't have to jump through hoops, whatever. So, and then on top of that, they can do that, and then they're putting in their credit card number. I'm not taking it over the phone and hand keying it into the software because I haven't been through a chargeback with Stripe yet. But I've got one here on my desk that I've got to deal with here later that somebody hand keyed a credit card at our front register and clearly should not have, and we're out $1,000 or $1,500 on a concrete saw. So charges.
That's fun. Well, we talked about the online renting. We didn't talk about the digital quotes stuff as well. Sounds like that's a feature you've been using too as a way to, make things easier for you guys, but also just mostly on the credit cards side, it makes sure it's accurate and it's working. Stripe will validate your real credit card when they type it in. You're not on the hook for fat fingering it, which sounds like already happened. Right. So is the digital quote feature another core thing of what you guys have been doing? If they're not directly renting online, you're at least sending them the quote to sort of fill out the form digitally.
Yep. Yeah. We use it for that. When, Joe calls in on the phone, hey man, I need to rent a lift. Can I pick it up tomorrow? Yeah, no problem. What's your email address, phone number? Let me punch that in here real quick and I'll send you the quote. And you can go online, put your credit card number in. It'll, have you take a picture of your driver's license, put your information in for me. So when they show up, all I got to do is just, click on rent and send it on its way. So it makes it really nice. The other side of it that I found useful is there's a lot of times that I don't know if it's only me that sees this, but I'm sure other rental operators have seen it where, the contractor comes in and they want to rent this piece of equipment and they've got the homeowner's credit card because they don't have the funds in their account to cover it. And we won't do that. It's like, no, absolutely not. This is just a recipe for disaster, how I'm going to lose money all over this.
Yeah.
So I've gotten in the habit now of just telling my guys that, hey, when this happens, it's easy. Get the homeowner's information while the contractor's standing in front of you. Send the homeowner the quote. Let her or him, whoever's on the other end of that phone, punch in all their information. And at least I feel better about them doing that. And even if the contractor's the one to click the sign now button, if the homeowner didn't do that, whatever, at least I didn't have a part in that. It's all in Susie Q's name. Her contractor picked it up, whatever. It's on you. I've washed my hands of it. Whereas before it was, pretty frequent that, guy would come in to rent a piece of equipment and, oh, hey, we're going to use this credit card on it. And it's like, yeah, I don't like this. And, 50% of the time it's fine. 50% of the time you get burned. So
better put them in the customer digital. It's all verified, validated, and also saves you guys time. And with your, lower labor rates, it's also, consistent, right? You're not having people play different things, just done clean through the process, just works.
Yep. Yeah. And then that way the person that is actually the renter is the person who authorized the transaction. They put in all their information and I didn't have any parts of it. My guys didn't have any parts of it. In the case, like I was telling you, I got this charge back here on a concrete saw. Customer came in, picked up a steel cutoff saw, went to the front register and pretended that his phone wouldn't tap on the card reader correctly, and got a newer cashier and said, hey, my phone's not working for some reason. Can you just type the number in? And, they've spoofed the credit card number on the screen of like their Apple Wallet. Mm. Then you can see on the video, I can watch the cashier just type in the number, right there on their on the keypad. It's like, I know that's going to be fraud, but dealing with chargebacks, this was 3 months ago, and today I just got the chargeback. So I couldn't actually prosecute him until today. Mm-hmm. So not like I'd have caught him at day one, but now here we are at day 90, and we're going back on a chargeback.
Yeah, it comes back to, and I think it's part of leveraging technology when you can. I know we're bumping up on time here, so maybe the last question is, I guess for any advice for any hardware stores or non-traditional rental companies who are thinking about getting into rental, why should they consider that? Maybe not advice, but like, what are some of the positive benefits of expanding into rental for a group that maybe has some fixed equipment, they have a physical storefront, they have employees, they have customers who are walking into the store? Why should another hardware store or a group like that consider expanding into rental?
So for me, if I'm a hardware store, most hardware stores are in the outdoor power equipment business. They got a technician in the shop, so you've kind of got the pieces of the puzzle that you really need, because I don't see how you're going to run a rental operation without somebody in the shop, without having a tech. I feel like if I had to pay somebody that was, just doing that for a living, that there's no way that I could stay in the business. But, in that case, you've got a mechanic in the shop, you've got, some equipment already, people are used to being around. It's a great way to help fill in, some lost revenue, especially in the winter months, because I try to push all of our PMs on our equipment to the winter months when the shop is slow. So, where typically I'd have a mechanic in the shop that's, we're trying to find something for him to do that doesn't involve sitting on a chair and staring at a computer screen. It works out for us that he's able to take that time and go through, 100, 150 pieces of rental equipment with a fine tooth comb, make sure it's all ready, because let's face it, December, January, February, in our situation of being, the 4 hour, 1 day, 1 week rentals, it's slow. Rental is all but dead in those winter months. So I can take the technician in the shop who's also got nothing to do, and he can work on that. And frankly, it just helps the bottom line. Anything we can do to diversify with the disappearing of brick and mortar stores, with the Amazons out there, because let's face it, everybody Amazons. I need a part for my lawnmower. It used to be they come talk to me. Hey man, I need this. And well, today, I get so many people that are in here and they want the part number that I just looked up so they can buy it online. It's like, I wouldn't have the audacity to walk into somebody's place of business, ask them to do something for me so I can buy it elsewhere. But it happens every day. And, at least at this point, I don't see the rental is going to ever disappear from a brick and mortar location, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's a good diversification for the changing things happening in our economy. It's a good way to allocate fixed costs you already have in the business, and especially with seasonality changing with rental and the other parts of your business. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about Amazon a ton, right? That's the thesis for why we started with online renting at Quipli. But I don't know if they're going to get into equipment rental. They may at some point. They'll probably get into everything, but for at least for a while, equipment rental seems to be a good avenue. And if it's done well, right, it's a very profitable endeavor, right? And I think for all the reasons you talked about, if you have that storefront, if you have the equipment, if you want to diversify revenue, it's great for a hardware store or other sort of businesses that think about expanding into rental.
Yep, I would agree. It's definitely another avenue to look at, because you can also boost your sales off of it too if you play your cards right, obviously.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you bring renter traffic in, they start buying stuff. Not obviously vice versa, but rental could be the Trojan horse to get people into your store.
Correct. And you don't know, I don't know which way it, goes, whether they were a hardware customer first or they were a rental customer, but either way, once we've got them here, and that's another problem that we have, is that I'll have somebody that's been, renting with us for years, and they'll say, oh man, I didn't know you also did that. Or somebody that's been, shopping here for years and goes, I didn't know you rented equipment. Like, you didn't trip over the skid steer on the parking lot on the way through the front door with the big sign that says "Rent Me."
Yeah.
And that's another part of the education of just trying to figure out how to educate our customers that, hey, what all we do here, because obviously we do a fair amount of diversified services here.
That's right. Well, Kyle, it's been great having you on. It's been great getting to know you the last year or so. Great seeing you at ARA. Hopefully look forward to seeing you if you make it out to Vegas in January as well. But thanks for coming on. Great episode. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you guys.